If you're over 60 and still wearing your hair the way you did 20 years ago, it might be working against you more than you realize. Certain cuts and colors that once looked polished can now flatten your whole face, add years you don't need, and make you look tired even on a good day. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through the exact styles stylists quietly steer their older clients away from, and exactly what to ask for instead. One of these is so common, you might be doing it in the mirror this morning without even noticing. Let's start with the one nobody warns you about. The blunt bob that's aging your whole face. Here's something most women never hear from their stylist directly. A perfectly blunt, chin-length bob, the kind with a hard, straight-across line and zero movement, was designed decades ago for a much younger jawline. On a woman in her 60s or 70s, that same sharp horizontal line does something unexpected. It doesn't frame the face. It boxes it in. You've probably felt this without being able to name it. You get the cut, it looks neat in the chair, and then you catch yourself in a photo a week later and something feels off. Heavier. Older. Not quite you. That's not your imagination. A blunt, unlayered bob sits like a straight line across a face that has naturally softened with time, and a hard line next to soft, changing features reads as harsh rather than sharp. There's a reason this keeps happening. Blunt bobs photograph beautifully on younger models with high cheekbones and defined jaws, so they end up on every salon reference board. Nobody updates the reference for what actually flatters a mature face. So women walk in asking for that bob, and walk out with a cut fighting their own bone structure. The fix isn't abandoning short hair. It's softening the line. Ask your stylist for a lightly layered, slightly longer bob, landing just past the jaw rather than right at it, with face framing layers cut at an angle rather than blunt. This single change does three things at once. It breaks up that heavy horizontal edge. It adds visible movement, so the cut has life instead of sitting like a helmet. And it draws the eye diagonally along your jawline instead of straight across it, which softens the whole lower half of your face. Ask specifically for point cut ends and face framing layers starting at the cheekbone. Those two phrases tell your stylist exactly what to do without you needing to explain the theory behind it. Point cutting removes the blunt edge by cutting into the hair at an angle instead of straight across, so the ends taper naturally instead of stopping abruptly. Face framing layers starting at the cheekbone means the shortest pieces land right where your face needs the most lift and softness, rather than uniformly around the whole head. Here's the part that actually changes how people read your face. Once that hard line is broken up, the cut stops competing with your features and starts working with them. Softer edges near the jaw draw attention up toward your eyes and cheekbones instead of down toward your chin. Women who make this switch often say the same thing. People start commenting that they look rested or lighter. Not because anything about their face changed, but because the hair stopped dragging visual weight downward. There's a styling habit that matters just as much as the cut itself. A blunt bob is usually blow-dried pin straight, which reinforces that heavy, flat line even further. A layered version wants the opposite treatment. Ask your stylist to show you how to use a round brush to add a slight outward flick at the ends, or how to twist small sections while diffusing for soft, natural texture. Movement in the ends is what makes layering actually visible day to day, not just in the salon chair. So the swap is simple to say out loud, but it changes everything about how the cut sits on your face. Trade the hard, chin-length blunt line for a softer, slightly longer, angle-layered bob with movement built into the ends. That's the entire fix, and it costs nothing extra at your next appointment. It's a cutting technique, not an upgrade. The next mistake is one you can't always see in the mirror, because it only shows up when you're standing next to someone else. And it's about length, not shape. The long, flat hair pulling your features down. There's a quiet reason so many women keep their hair long well into their 60s and 70s, and it usually isn't vanity. It's habit. It's the length they've worn for 30 years, the length that feels like them. But hair that hangs straight past the shoulders with no shape underneath does something gravity-related that nobody warns you about. It pulls. Every strand of long, heavy hair adds weight that drags at the roots. On thicker hair, that weight flattens the crown completely, so volume that used to exist at the top of your head disappears under the sheer pull of length. On finer hair, which is common as hair naturally thins with age, the effect is worse. What's left looks stringy and sparse rather than long and flowing, because there simply isn't enough density to support that much length without shape underneath it. Here's the part that catches people off guard. It's not really about length at all. A woman can wear her hair long and look wonderful. Plenty do. The actual problem is length with no internal structure. Flat, uniform, one-length hair with nothing built into it to create lift or shape is what reads as tired, thin, and dated. Two women can have the exact same length and look completely different, purely based on whether there's shape working underneath that length. The fix keeps the length you love while rebuilding what's underneath it. Ask for long layers cut starting from the crown, with the shortest layer landing around chin to collarbone length, and root lift layering woven through the top section. This is different from a haircut that simply removes length. It's a haircut that redistributes weight, taking bulk out from underneath while leaving the visible length at the bottom untouched. Root lift layering deserves its own explanation, because it's the detail that actually solves the flat crown problem. Instead of cutting all the hair to fall in one continuous sheet, your stylist cuts internal layers that are shorter than the surrounding hair and sit hidden underneath the top layer. Those shorter internal pieces can't lie flat the way long, heavy hair does. They naturally want to lift, and that lift pushes the visible top layer of hair upward at the root. The result is volume at the crown that doesn't disappear the moment you walk out the salon door, because it's built into the cut itself rather than relying on styling product to fake it. Ask specifically for internal layers, or root lift layers concentrated at the crown, and mention that you want the perimeter length left mostly intact. That phrasing tells your stylist you're not there to lose length. You're there to lose flatness, which is a completely different request, and one that changes the whole plan for where the scissors go. The snapback moment here is worth sitting with. Women who make this one change often say the compliment they hear most isn't, "I love your haircut." It's, "Did you do something different with your hair color?" Even when the color never changed. That's what happens when volume returns to the crown. Light catches the hair differently, texture becomes visible instead of flat, and the whole head reads as fuller and more vibrant, even though the only thing that actually changed was where the weight sits. Styling-wise, this cut wants a different approach than flat-ironed straight hair. Rough drying the roots upside down for the first few minutes, then finishing with a round brush lifting directly at the crown, keeps that internal layering doing its job. A texturizing spray at the roots before drying gives the internal layers something to grip onto, so the lift holds through the day instead of collapsing back to flat by lunchtime. So if you love your length, keep it. Just stop leaving it flat. Ask for internal root lift layering rather than a uniform one-length cut, and let the volume come back to where it's actually needed. There's a third mistake that has nothing to do with the cut at all, and it might be the one doing the most damage in photographs. The overly dark, flat color aging you by years. This one surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it, because it seems backwards. Going darker is supposed to look more polished, more put together, right? For years, that's exactly what women were told. Cover the gray, go dark, look sharper. But flat, single-process dark color does the opposite of what it promises once skin has naturally softened and lightened with age. Here's the mechanism nobody explains at the salon. As skin ages, it naturally loses some of its pigment and takes on a slightly cooler, paler quality, especially in the years after 60. Flat, solid dark hair color creates a hard contrast against that lighter skin tone. And hard contrast draws attention directly to every line, shadow, and texture change in the face. It's not that dark hair is unflattering in general. It's that a single, uniform shade with no light or dimension anywhere in it creates a stark boundary right at the hairline. And stark boundaries are exactly what age-related skin changes don't need highlighted. You can usually recognize this in your own photos even if you can't name what's wrong. The hair looks almost like a solid block of color rather than something with texture. And the face underneath it looks smaller, harder, more washed out by comparison. Meanwhile, a woman with the exact same skin tone and the exact same natural gray wearing soft, dimensional color often looks years younger. Not because her skin is different, but because her hair color is doing something completely different around her face. The fix isn't going lighter across the board, and it isn't fighting your gray if you don't want to. It's adding dimension. Ask your stylist for soft, face-framing highlights placed only around the hairline and temples, blended with your natural base color rather than a full head of solid tone. This technique has a name worth remembering: money piece framing, where lighter, brighter pieces are placed specifically around the face rather than throughout the whole head. Here's why this works on a mechanical level. Placing lighter pieces right at the hairline and temples does the opposite of that hard, stark boundary. It creates a gradual transition between skin tone and hair color instead of an abrupt one. That gradual transition is what visually softens the whole face, because the eye no longer registers a hard line where hair meets skin. Instead it reads as glow, as light catching the hair naturally, the same way light would catch hair that's aging gracefully rather than being forced into a uniform shade. If you're not ready to lighten at all, there's a version of this that works purely with tone. Ask for lowlights woven through, 2 shades warmer than your base, which adds movement and depth without changing your overall color family. Either version, highlights at the face or warmer lowlights throughout, breaks up flatness, and flatness is really the enemy here, not darkness itself. The result women notice most isn't really about the color at all, it's about their eyes. Once dimension is added around the face, the lighter pieces naturally draw attention upward toward the eyes instead of the whole face reading as one dark, heavy mass. People start saying things like, "Your eyes look so bright today," which has nothing to do with makeup and everything to do with where the lightest color in the frame now sits. One honest note here, this isn't a wash and go change. Dimensional color needs a touch-up roughly every 10 to 12 weeks to keep the transition soft as your natural color grows in, versus a flat single-process color that can sometimes stretch longer between visits. It's a trade worth knowing about up front. Even though most women find the difference in how they look is worth the extra salon visit. Trade flat, solid dark color for soft, face-framing dimension, whether that's highlights at the hairline or warm lowlights throughout. The goal was never darkness or lightness. It was breaking up that hard, aging boundary between skin and hair. Last one is the style so many women reach for when they're in a hurry, and it might be the harshest of them all. The severe, slicked-back style that's too harsh. Here's an uncomfortable truth about the tight, low, slicked-back bun or ponytail. It photographs as polished on a red carpet, on a 25-year-old, under professional lighting and expert makeup. On an ordinary Tuesday, on a mature face, pulled tight straight back from the hairline with no softness anywhere near the temples, it does something almost nobody intends. It pulls the whole face taut in a way that reads as severe rather than sleek. The physics of it are simple once you see them. When every strand of hair is pulled straight back and tight, there's nothing left near the hairline to soften the transition between hair and forehead. Every line at the temple, every bit of natural texture near the brow, sits fully exposed with nothing framing or diffusing it. Younger, more elastic skin can carry that exposure without much consequence. Skin that has naturally softened over the decades reads differently under that same tight pull. The tightness draws attention to exactly the areas most women would rather soften, not sharpen. There's also an emotional layer to this one that's worth naming honestly. A lot of women reach for the tight bun specifically because it feels neat, controlled, low maintenance, especially on hair that's become harder to manage as texture changes with age. It's not a vanity mistake. It's a practical habit that happens to work against the face in ways the mirror doesn't always show clearly, especially from the front. The fix keeps every bit of the practicality women love about pulled-back styles while releasing the tension that makes it look severe. Ask your stylist to show you how to pull the style back loosely rather than tightly, leaving soft, face-framing pieces out at the temples and along the hairline before securing the rest. This single adjustment changes almost everything about how the style reads, without changing the basic idea of hair pulled back and out of the way. The 2 or 3 face-framing pieces left loose do real visual work. They fall naturally along the sides of the face and soften the hard line where hair meets skin at the hairline, the exact spot that reads as tight and exposed when everything is slicked back completely. Ask specifically for face-framing pieces left down before securing. That phrase tells your stylist to section those pieces out first, before the rest of the hair goes back, so it's built into the styling process rather than an afterthought. There's a second adjustment that matters just as much as the loose pieces: the amount of tension used to pull the style back in the first place. A tight pull that visibly stretches the skin at the temples is what creates that severe, taut look. Pulling the hair back with gentler tension, leaving a soft, slightly rounded shape rather than a flat, glass-like surface against the scalp, keeps the polished feeling without the pulled-tight harshness. Your stylist can show you how to do this with your hands rather than a fine-tooth comb. Smoothing rather than yanking the hair into place. Here's the result worth knowing before you try it. Women who switch from the tight, slicked style to the looser, face-framed version consistently describe the same reaction from others. People say they look softer, or more relaxed, even in a style that's still, technically, hair pulled back and out of the way. The style hasn't become less neat. It simply stopped pulling attention to the exact areas a tight pull used to expose. Split-screen portrait of the same woman, 65 to 75. Left half shows hair pulled into a tight, severe, slicked-back style with visible tension at the temples. Expression gently uncertain. Right half shows the same style pulled back more loosely with soft face framing pieces left near the temples. Expression warm and confident. Same face and same warm salon interior background on both sides, divided by a thin vertical line. Photorealistic real photograph. Mature woman age 65 to 75 with natural skin texture with visible fine lines and real pores, naturally attractive and well lit. Hair clearly visible and in sharp focus as the central visual detail. Soft even bright warm lighting. Simple uncluttered salon interior background. No text, no watermarks, no logos. Aspect ratio 16 to 9. Keep the pulled back style if it works for your routine. Just lose the tight pull and the fully slicked hairline. And let 2 or 3 soft pieces frame your face instead. That's the entire adjustment, and it takes an extra 30 seconds in front of the mirror, nothing more. 4 small changes for completely different results, and every one of them starts at your very next salon visit. So now you know the 4 styles quietly working against you after 60. The blunt bob with no movement, the long flat length with no lift, the flat dark color with no dimension, and the tight slicked back pull with no softness. And exactly what to say in the chair to fix each one. None of these require starting over. They're small, specific adjustments to what you're already wearing. Which one of these have you been doing without realizing it? Tell me in the comments, I read every one. Next time, I'm breaking down the exact questions to ask before your very next color appointment, so you never leave the salon disappointed again. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.